Three, two, one, and welcome back, everyone. Today is episode 58, I believe.
58.
Today's February 24th. My name's Amy Nixon, and joining me, as always, the Stat King himself from Austin, Texas, Michael Wing. What's up, bro?
What is going on? This is going to be a shorter episode. We're going to obviously we have to talk about, or at least mention, the incident that happened yesterday with Tiger Woods. Very unfortunate. And then we're going to get into the Carson Wentz trade, which happened just about a week ago, and some NBA MVP conversations. So it's going to be a shorter episode today, but it's episode 58. Welcome back. Hit the like and subscribe buttons, and let's get into this.
Yeah, as always, thanks for listening, and let's do this. I think we'll start with the football. We'll start with the Tiger Woods stuff. I think that's a good thing to start off with since it's so recent. When this happened, the way I found out was my friends put it in the group chat, in our golf team group chat, and I was like, oh my gosh. My friend put 2021 is trying to copy 2020, and I was like, oh my gosh, no. And I thought, oh no, is he like gone? Like that was my first thoughts. I was like, holy crap. But it turns out that wasn't the case. Thank goodness. But he did break both legs and have a fracture in one of his ankles. So it's just crazy to think that it could all end just on any drive, any day. Just
right.
Oh man.
Yeah. The first thing you have to say is, the thoughts and your prayers go out to Tiger and his family. The first thing I really thought of when I heard the news was what happened last year with Kobe. Of course, that was a little bit different since it was a helicopter, but still sort of the same situation here. They are still going to investigate, how this happened and what happened exactly, but they think he might have been going a little fast. He wasn't under the influence or anything. They've already reported that, which is a good thing. He's not going to be charged for any, sort of under the influence DUI sort of things. But, the street that he was driving on, it's a big downhill curve apparently, and they think he was driving a little fast. The speed limit's 45 miles per hour. And I guess the car or what caused it is still to be determined, but they say he was running a little bit late to this shoot he was doing with Justin Herbert and I believe it was Drew Brees for some Golf Channel thing he was doing, and the police officers and the paramedics in the press conference yesterday in the aftermath of this said that he was lucky he was wearing a seatbelt, because if he wasn't, he probably wouldn't have survived. And they said the margin of error, based on what they think happened, was very, very low. So, I'm happy that he's alive. I'm happy that the reports were today that he's awake, he's responsive in the hospital. He's alive, he's here. He's going to be okay. If anybody can come back from this, it's going to be Tiger. And I just hope that, he was a couple months removed from another back surgery. I just hope this doesn't set him back in that respect. he was recovering from his 5th back surgery that he had 2 days before Christmas, and now this happened. So I just hope that his back is okay, because if you remember, it was the other car crash. Well, we won't get into that, but it was another car crash that kind of started the other back injuries. So, back in 2009, 2010, around that time. So I'm glad he's okay. I'm glad he's alive. I tweeted out earlier today that whether or not he, the questions about whether or not he will play again on the PGA Tour, much less win again on the PGA Tour, should be irrelevant at this point. Of course, we would love to see him play again, but the number one priority right now has to be his health and his well-being, and to be thinking about his kids. What a devastating blow this would have been to his kids, Charlie, and then Sam, his daughter. It just would have been terrible. So we're happy he's here. I'm happy he's alive. I'm happy he's okay after surgery, and I'm rooting for him.
Yeah. And he's a guy who's had a lot of knee surgeries also. Like, we always think of the back stuff, but dating back to the 90s, he's had so many knee surgeries on both legs. So this is just another thing on the line of a long stretch of injuries. He's been
through a lot mentally and a lot physically. And when people talk about Tiger, and they talked about this a lot in the first episode of the HBO documentary that was just released, I don't know, like last month. And you should watch it if you haven't seen it. They talk a lot about how mentally tough he is in that documentary. And it was just a great documentary. But he's also been through a lot physically. And we know that if anybody is going to come back from these injuries, it's going to be him.
Right.
But the worry should be, can he interact with his kids? Will he be able, will we see him walk again? We think we will, because, the injuries weren't life-threatening or anything, but let's just see.
We're having some technical problems again, looks like. Yeah, he's frozen. I'm going to continue off of what he said and just finish off this topic just by saying that he's got nothing left to prove. He's done everything that he's needed to do. Like, with everything that he's done throughout his career, like, if he was to never step foot in a PGA tournament ever again, that would be completely fine. Like, he has nothing left to prove at this point. So just for him, he just needs to focus on his life. Like this might shorten like the amount of time he gets to live. So this is like something that's like nothing could get more important than that. So yeah, I guess I know that's a dark place to end this topic on, but it's just a really dark topic in general. But I guess we can move on here. Have y'all ever thought about starting your own podcast but thought it would be too complicated? If your answer to that question is yes, let me tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to start a quality podcast. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast from any device. And on top of that, Anchor is owned by Spotify, so you have access to a full library of sound effects, background music, transitions, and even full songs that you can add in. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, and it will hook you up with sponsors so you can make money on your podcast. It's literally everything you could ever need to start a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. We took a little bit of a hiatus from football recently, but we're going to get right back into it. Pretty soon we're going to get into our draft stuff. But last week, a really big trade went down. So it was Carson Wentz, the former Eagles starting quarterback, headed to the Indianapolis Colts for a conditional second-round pick and a third-round pick. But the thing about the second-round pick is that if he plays 75% of the snaps next season, that becomes a first-round pick.
Right.
Let's get your thoughts real quick. You can go first here.
Okay, real fast. We'll address it from an Indianapolis Colts perspective first.
Right.
The first thing I want to say is give a lot of credit to the Indianapolis Colts general manager, Chris Ballard, one of the best general managers in this league, no doubt. He did not blink in these trade discussions. This, I guess you say, bargaining war or bidding war for Carson Wentz. He said, "This is what I'm offering you, and if you're not going to take it, well, I'm not going to give you anything more. This is what we have. This is what we're offering you. We're not budging." And, they kind of had some leverage once Wentz said, or apparently told the Philadelphia Eagles that he didn't want to play for the Chicago Bears, the other pretty prevalent team in this bidding war for his services. And that's when Philly just sort of got impatient and they took this deal. Now, I don't think it's a terrible deal from a Philadelphia perspective. I do think it's a really good deal from an Indianapolis perspective. I give it like a B+. The conditional 2022 second rounder will bump to a first round pick if he plays 75% of the snaps next season, or if he plays 70% of the snaps and Indy reaches the playoffs. Those are the two scenarios where it will bump up to a first round pick. And then obviously this year, you can find players in the third round that can help you win. They aren't, it's not a guarantee, but I think for Philadelphia, you just have to give Jalen Hurts his chance. We saw him come out at the end of last year once they benched Wentz, and he performed well. He showed some flashes. There were the ups and the downs, of course. I think you got to give him his chance and maybe bring in a low-cost veteran or use that number 6 pick to draft another quarterback just to give Hurts some competition in training camp. But I think you have to give Hurts the start week 1 just because of what he showed you last season. And you're going to need a little bit more of a bigger sample size, before you can judge whether or not he can be your future starter. But let me get into Carson Wentz, the player, because we all know about the struggles of the last couple of years. But when you look at his numbers, he's reuniting with his former offensive coordinator in Frank Reich. That is the hope here. That's the connection here with Indianapolis. Under his 2 years with Reich as the offensive coordinator, he made 29 starts. He went 18-11, including the 11-2 start in 2017, the Eagles' Super Bowl year before he got injured, of course. And over that time span, he completed 65% of his passes for over 7,000 yards, 49 touchdowns to just 21 interceptions. That's about a 2.5 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio, and he was on pace for the league MVP before he got hurt. So the hope is that he can return to that form. I do think Indianapolis should be elevated into the Super Bowl contention tier now. I think Wentz gives you something more athletically, from an athletic perspective and from a talent perspective, that they should be excited about. The fact that he's reuniting with Frank Reich, where he's had his biggest success, should also be exciting. And I think that, I don't know, I'd have to look at, their free agents, how much cap space they have, obviously the draft capital. But, they went 11-5 with Phillip Rivers, who was not athletic at all. And, was kind of limited in some of the things that he could do from a athletic standpoint in terms of moving out of the pocket, throwing on the run, stuff like that. He wasn't one of those guys. Wentz can do a lot of that stuff. And the last thing I want to say, he's going to get a lot better protection in Indianapolis than he did in Philadelphia. So I'm hoping it works out. I think this would make the AFC playoff race a lot more interesting if it does. And the Colts are going to be dangerous if he returns to the 2017, 28, even 2018 form of himself. But obviously there's a lot to fix. Hopefully Frank Reich can fix it. Hopefully their relationship is still there. I'm assuming it is, or else they wouldn't have made this move. I'm kind of ranting now, but I think for the short term, it's kind of a win-win for both sides. Philly got him out of the locker room. He was kind of, there was a report out that he didn't speak to Doug Peterson for a span of like 8 to 10 weeks over the course of the season, which is, I don't know how that's even possible, how the quarterback and the coach have no communication for a time period of, that long. But, you get kind of I don't want to say he was a toxin in the locker room, but, he was just, when you have players like this, you got to get them out.
Right.
And from a any perspective, I mean, you're getting a MVP caliber player, or at least we think can be someone who can be an MVP caliber player, and is still relatively young.
Right.
He's only 28 years old and probably has 5 years left of prime, 5 to 7 years left of prime quarterbacking before he really falls off athletically.
Right. I love this move for Indy. I give this an A. I think this is a great move for Indy. This is a classic low risk, high reward type of move. If you're looking at all of the teams that need a quarterback, I don't know why they wouldn't get in on this bidding war, but it seemed like Indy waited long enough to where everybody else just gave up and they were the only ones in the running. And then the Eagles just said, screw it. We'll just get rid of him. And that's huge, because that really brought down the value that they had to pay to get Carson Wentz, which was big. But one thing I want to hit on is a lot of people were saying, oh, why would they take on this Carson Wentz contract? This is such a big contract, just such a huge overpay. But really, they're only paying him $22 million this year. In reality, the Eagles are the ones that have to pay that contract this year. The Eagles are getting a dead cap hit of $33 million, the most in NFL history. The second most is from the Jared Goff trade from a few weeks before that at $22 million. So this is a relatively new thing, and this is something that's never happened before. having a dead cap hit that's that high, which to me really brings down my grade for the Eagles. I think I would give the Eagles like a B minus, simply from the fact that I know this is the direction that I think that they really needed to go. But I saw a route where they could maybe just continue with Carson Wentz and kind of fix things, because some of the things Carson Wentz was doing was really just easy fixes. He was just getting into too much hero ball. His footwork got sloppy, and I think that might have been a result of the off season that took place. But I know that's not a good excuse, but I think it might have been because of that. So I think if you got a new coach to come in, which they did, maybe build that relationship up and then just continue on with Carson Wentz, I think it would have turned out okay. But now that they have a rookie in the building, they have a team with a lot of veteran players that may not be happy with a rebuild. I know that from what I've heard, a lot of the players in the locker room have really gotten behind Jalen Hurts, but winning cures all. So if they come out and they are losing next year, they're going to have to they might have to make some trades and cut some guys that are unhappy with the situation. Because a lot of those guys came to Philly to win, like guys like Darius Slay. He literally went to Philly to get out of a bad situation in Detroit. And you got a guy like Zach Ertz, who's aging, Peters, their left tackle, who's aging, Lane Johnson, Kelsey. I forgot his first name. Is it Jason Kelsey?
Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, Jason Kelsey, the center. He's aging as well. So that's the big thing for me. It seems like there's a gap between where Philly is going and the players that they have on their team right now. Like they're built to win if they are healthy, but where they're going is more towards a rebuild. So I think we might see a lot of unloading coming up soon for Philly.
Right. I think you're right. I would give it probably a B minus or a B. I think it elevates if that 2022 conditional second round pick turns into a first round pick. Obviously, assuming the Colts are a playoff team, and that's not going to be a very high pick, but you can still find value in having 2 first round picks next season. That should help start the rebuild, I guess. But from an Indianapolis Colts perspective, if we're talking about where they sit now in terms of, I guess, the Super Bowl race, and obviously it's way too early to tell anything because we still have free agency in the draft. But I'm looking at the free agents. T.Y. Hilton is a free agent, unrestricted. Anybody else? Justin Houston, I think he's too old to resign.
They had their left tackle retire recently because Costanzo. But this is a deep tackle draft, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Marlon Mack's a free agent. When you like to have depth at the running back position, but they have Jonathan Taylor, so it wouldn't hurt them a lot if they lost Marlon Mack.
Right.
Zach Pascal's a free agent. Mo Alley Cox, just no one too big. I don't know how much cap space they have, but nothing that they can't handle. Nobody that they are really gonna, I guess, struggle to go in, re-sign and keep with the team. I think that from an Indianapolis perspective, it's a top 5 roster in the league that's currently constructed. I think Michael Pittman's going to take another step. I think Jonathan Taylor is a star running back in the making. Offensive line is obviously we'll see how they replace the left tackle you were talking about, but still a top 10 offensive line and a top 10 defense. So if Carson Wentz can clean up some of the that you were talking about, both, I guess, mechanically and mentally, and kind of repair that chemistry, or not repair, recoup that, recoup or rekindle that chemistry with Frank Reich, Indianapolis is going to be loving this trade. They're going to be loving themselves at this time next year, because it is possible, given health and whoever they might add in free agency in the draft, that they could get to an A. It's very possible that they could win the AFC South and get to an AFC championship, as currently constructed.
And another reason that I think it's a win is there's an out after this year. If this doesn't work out, if they start out the season slow and he's playing awful, boom, you bench him. You see what Jacob Eason has. You can see what he can give you. He was their, I believe, 3rd or 4th round pick from a few years ago. He's got a really big arm. He was raw coming out, but he's had a couple of years to sit now, so he might have something. If that doesn't work out, you go out and you draft somebody next year, and boom, it's over. You can just get rid of them. But a key thing is just if they didn't go out and get Carson Wentz, I mean, there isn't a guarantee that anybody else on the market would give you what Carson Wentz is capable of giving you. If you look at the guys on the market, I mean, Jameis Winston, Gardner Minshew, I mean, this is a team that's built to win a Super Bowl, and I think Carson Wentz was really the only option they had to really not bring that level down. I think if you go out and get Jameis Winston, I mean, best case scenario, you make the playoffs and then you just wait for him to have a bad 5 interception game in the playoffs. It feels inevitable that would happen, you know? I think if you're going to go out and win a Super Bowl, you just need a quarterback who is going to be able to make the plays outside of the pocket and still be smart with the football and still be accurate. And Carson Wentz can be that. So given that they don't have a high draft pick and they can't go out and get a Mac Jones or a Zach Wilson or any of those guys, this was their best case scenario, and they were able to pull that off and not pay that much for it. So I think this is an A to A+. But let's transition this to our Jalen Hurts discussion here. I think we spent a little bit too long on that, but I mean, it might be a little longer of an episode that we originally said, but I mean, it's okay. We're it's all good. So Jalen Hurts, this topic is just going to be whether we think he can be the long-term starter in Philly. And I think the simple answer to this is maybe. Here's the thing with Jalen Hurts. I love his leadership qualities. His leadership qualities are great. His teammates love him. We saw him as soon as he won the game. The guys rallied around him and started playing better. And he's improved every single year that we've seen him, going back to his Alabama years all the way up to Oklahoma. And from where he was at Oklahoma to where he was last year in his rookie year, it's a big difference just in his mechanics and his ability to throw accurately downfield. So I thought that was really impressive. And I think if he can continue that trajectory, I think it's a definite yes, but that's a big if. It all just depends on whether he continues to put in the work, because it's so easy, I think, for athletes to get complacent when you get some success.
Right. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about here. I think he could do it, but it all depends on, how long down the road are we talking about. If you look at him as a player, and tangible, you mentioned it, leadership, It seems that he's intelligent. His football IQ is through the roof. He's young. He's only 22. Small sample size, but 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. It's not great, not terrible. Obviously, we know he's capable as a runner. And in today's NFL, at the quarterback position, you got to be able to move and make plays with your legs. He can do that. You would like to see him improve accuracy standpoint. 52% isn't really going to cut it long term, but he's young. He can improve on that. With the weapons that Philly has, I think you build on that. I think he could with all the tools that he has. But I don't think it's hard to say. I'll be able to more about halfway into next season. And it all depends on who they bring in, this year in the draft or possibly in free agency. You could look at a trade for Sam Darnold. He's cheap. He wouldn't cost you a whole lot. I mean, there are a lot of options. Possibly a Teddy Walker. We don't know. But I think for the short term, definitely yes. Long term, maybe.
Right. And he's just going to have to get better at playing in structure. That's the biggest thing. He bails from clean pockets too often. And it seems like sometimes he gets to this state where he gets he looks at his first read, and if it's not there, he just runs. And I think that'll work for a little bit, but once defenses key in on what you're doing, that's going to be really easy to stop. And not only will it not work, but also that's an easy way to get hurt really quick. So he's going to have to work on that, being able to stay in the pocket and make throws from inside the pocket. So I think his ceiling is a top 10 to 12 quarterback. I think that's his ceiling. But with his arm strength, it could be even higher than that. It's just going to depend on the team he has around him and coaching, and there's a lot of other factors as well. So,
right. But let's transition so we don't go too far over our planned time limit to our NBA in mid. It's pretty much mid-season. I mean, the All-Star break is in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So our NBA mid-season MVP ranking. I did my top 5. How I would, if I was doing my ballot, how I would rank them. But do you want to start this first?
Right.
Or do you want me to go first?
I'll go ahead. I think I'll go from 5 to 1. I'll just go backwards here. At 5, I have Luca Doncic. I know this is a little bit controversial. I think I was torn between putting him and Nikola Jokic, but it seems like Jokic has been really not been able to get as many wins lately, and lately the Mavericks have really come on strong. They've won 6 of their last 8 games, and he's been on fire in those 8 games. So when you look at Luka, it's really just will he win more when we get deeper into the season? I think he will. I think his MVP campaign truly started last night. I think pretty soon this train is going to start. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead, but this is more of a projection pick. I think he's going to be firmly in this race going forward. With the trajectory that this team is going on, I think it's going to be pretty clear that now that he's in the rhythm of the season, and he's in shape. He said it himself that he he came in and he thought the season was going to start in January, so he wasn't in that greatest shape to start the season, and it showed. He started the season 5 for 25 from 3-point range. Like, that's really, really bad for him. And now he's all the way up to 35%, which is a career high. So I think it's only going to keep on improving. And I think by the end of the season, I think he'll be averaging 31, 32 points per game, possibly. At number 4, I have Stephen Curry. 30 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. He's just been incredible. Like, it's hard to even put into context what he's doing. Like, he's been as good, if not better, than his unanimous MVP season. Like, he in his last 10 games, and this article is a few days. He's been out for a few days, so it might be a little bit off. But over his last 10 games, based on when this article was put out, he shot 51% over that stretch from 3. So 51% from 3 over that stretch. That's incredible. So if the Warriors are able to get in that top 5 seed range, he's going to be firmly in that picture. It's going to be hard to argue against him if they're able to move up that win ladder. At number 3, I have Damien Lillard. Pretty hard to argue with what he's been doing lately. He's had game winners. He's been clutch. He's been just carrying that team. Just under 30 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, a steal a game. And really, it's just what he's done with all the injuries that they've had. It's been the narrative has been really helping him out. Like, it's really like the stars are aligning for him. And I said this on the last podcast that I believe that this might be the year where he wins it. Just from the fact that CJ has missed time. Covington, their new forward, has missed time. Nurkic, Collins. I think I'm forgetting someone, but so many of their key rotational players have missed time and have been out of the lineup, and he's still been able to keep them not only afloat but in the race for one of the top seeds in the Western Conference, which is extremely impressive. And I think you could make the argument that he should be number 2 in front of my next player, who is Joel Embiid. 30 points per game, 11 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, and a steal per game. Really, with Embiid, he would be number 1 if he hadn't missed those 6 games. And given his history, it's hard for me to just assume that he'll stay healthy the rest of the year. I think something might happen just based on just things evening out, but which is unfortunate. I hope he stays healthy, and it would be really cool to see a big man win this award. It's been a long time since we've seen a big guy win it, and what he's doing has been incredible. Like, he had a game earlier this week, I think, or about a week ago actually, where he played the Rockets with while battling back problems the entire game. He was just grimacing up and down the court, put up 31 points, carried his team to the win. It's hard to argue against what he's been doing as well. And it's just, there's so many good candidates this year. It's hard to really differentiate between all these guys. So I've seen some people saying that this is a 2-man race now. I disagree with that. I think this is anybody's game right now. And then number 1, I have LeBron James. Anthony Davis has been out of the lineup, and he hasn't missed a beat. He's been incredible. And Lakers are firmly in that in that second seed at the moment in the Western Conference, and they've been really solid all year. So I'm going to let you give your rankings, and we'll discuss.
All right, I'll go 1 to 5 real fast. 1, I agree. It's LeBron James. He hasn't missed a game. He's averaging 26 points per game, 8 rebounds, 8 assists on 50% shooting from the field, and 35.5% from 3. And he's one of 3 players, along with Luca Doncic and Nikola Jokic, to be averaging at least 25 points per game, 8 rebounds per game, and 8 assists per game. Number 2 is Joel Embiid. We agree here. He's been fantastic, averaging pretty much almost 30 points per game at 29.8, 11 rebounds per game, 3 assists, shooting about 53% from the field, 41% from 3, which is pretty incredible. He's second in the NBA in player efficiency rating at 30.79, and the Sixers are 21 points per 100 possessions better with him on the court than with him off the court, which is a pretty dramatic swing. So we know he's missed some time, and that's why LeBron is where he is, because he hasn't missed games, and I believe he's like maybe leading the league in minutes. I have to check that, but he's definitely top 2 or 3, which is pretty incredible at his age. And Embiid has missed some time. That's why he's number 2. We agree there. Number 3, I have Jokic. I think obviously the Nuggets had a rough start. They started 1-4. It was rough, but since then, they're a 16-10 basketball team. And right now, if they were just 16-10, be right up there with the Blazers, fighting for a top 4 seed in the West. When you look at the winning percentage, how that would stack up. So I don't think you can really fault him for that rough start. He's averaging 27 points per game, pretty much 11 rebounds, 8.5 assists, 56% from the field, 41% from 3. He's on pace to become the first player in league history to average at least 25 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game on at least 55% from the field in a season if this keeps up. And he's scored 40 or more points in 4 games this season. In his previous 5 seasons, he had 4 such games. So he's already matched that. And the Nuggets, since that rough start, have been winning games. So I think, we'll see if that continues. But I really like what Jokic is doing. And he also is leading the league in player efficiency rating. I don't go too far beyond this, but he's number 1 in box plus minus. If you're not big into metrics, this really shouldn't matter to you, but he's number 1 in win shares. He's number 1 in offensive win shares, number 1 in value over. He's number 1 in a lot of metrics. He's having an incredible season statistically, but obviously, if you value winning a lot more, you might not have him as high in the rankings. Number 4, I have Damien Willard. Incredible. All the things you said were spot on. Averaging almost 30, 8 assists, 4 rebounds per game, shooting 38% from 3, keeping this Blazers not only afloat, but in the race for a top 4 seed while missing, I believe, Zach Collins, CJ McCollum, and Jokic for extended period is incredible. I believe he leads the league in field goal percentage and points in clutch time when the score is within 5 points within the last, I think, 5 minutes of
2 minutes, I think, 3 minutes, something like that.
2 or 3 minutes of a game. So just absolutely incredible. I really like Damien Willard, but obviously, he plays up in Oregon. He doesn't get the prime time spotlight a lot of the times. A lot of the times Portland plays later in the night. People don't watch him as much. They don't see what he's actually doing. So, when it comes, I know what he's doing, but a lot of these voters might not. And that's why I would rank him higher, but it is what it is. And then this could obviously change. It's all a fluid situation.
Right.
And then obviously, I've had my votes of confidence in last podcast about Stephen Curry. He's got to be in the top 5 any way you look at it. He has the Warriors in the 8 seed right now, 3 games above 500, in a Western Conference that is a gauntlet without Klay Thompson, without Draymond Green in a period of time, without for extended periods of time. I mean, they've had injuries left and right, and he's been the guy to keep them afloat in this playoff race. He's averaging, I'm not going to regurgitate all the numbers, but he's averaging 30 points per game on close to 50% shooting from the field. He's putting up numbers comparable, I can't talk today, to the unanimous MVP season. And just because of that, you have to include him in this discussion. And then the last thing I'll say, the Warriors go from averaging 115 points per 100 possessions with him on the floor to averaging, I believe, 95.6 points per 100 possessions with him off the floor. That's a dramatic drop. So, we see the impact that he's having. So I know LeBron, Embiid, Jokic, Lillard, Curry. And we all know that Luca Doncic is starting to make that ascent. Kawhi Leonard could be in this conversation, but he's missed a lot of time. And you have your James Hardens of the world. You could make an argument he could be in this. There are so many. Like you said, at this point, I think it's really anyone's game.
Right.
So there are so many candidates, but
right. Donovan Mitchell.
right.
Kevin Durant. There's so many. The talent in the league right now is insane. And like we saw that actually yesterday when they released the All-Star stuff, there were so many players that are deserving that they just didn't have enough spots. It was all just preference, really.
Right.
I think I overrated Doncic. I'm gonna definitely put Jokic in at 5. I hadn't looked at the standings in a few days, so I apologize about that. I thought they were like 13 and 10. That's why I said their winning wasn't as good as what it really is. So definitely Jokic at 5. Definitely you could make an argument for him even higher than that. I definitely underrated Jokic in this. And I think I'm going to put Luca further down for sure. He's not quite there yet.
But totally what we've seen, I think your points were valid based on your criteria was that you were expecting him to possibly enter this conversation based on what you've seen the past, 8 to 10 games.
Right. And I've watched every Mavericks game this year, so I might be biased.
Right.
I'm definitely biased.
Well, he's right. He's right there with Jokic and LeBron in terms of from a numbers standpoint.
Right.
They're the only 3 players in the league to be averaging at least 25, 8 and 8 this year. So
right.
maybe some people. Go ahead.
I think since he was the front runner to win MVP, everybody saw that he started off slow and how he got blown out on Christmas Day, and he started shooting from 3 really, really bad. Everybody just forgot about him, and then now that he's really playing at an MVP level, people aren't seeing it. So now I think now that they're back at 500, I think that's why I said his true MVP campaign started yesterday with that performance against the Celtics.
Right. I agree. So with that, we'll try to keep this to a minimum. I think that will do it for episode 58.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Um, as always, thank you for listening, guys. We really appreciate all the support. Downloads have been going up a lot lately, and we really appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, uh, leave a like. That really helps the channel grow, and we'd really like to grow to 50 to 100 subscribers by mid 2021. So if you could help us out there, that would be really appreciated. And however you're watching, however you're listening, have a great day, and peace out, everyone.
Peace out.